Welcome back to the Austin Sew Along. In today's lesson, I'll discuss the specifics involved in cutting your Austin. If you missed our previous lesson on pattern adjustments, you can find that in our YouTube profile under the Austin Dress Sew Along series. I hope you all have your patterns and fabric ready because it's time to grab those scissors and get cutting. First, we'll discuss pre-treating and prepping your fabric. As I mentioned previously, I'll be using this squiggle print linen. So you'll want to pre-wash and dry your fabric prior to cutting to reduce or eliminate shrinkage in your final garment. Make sure you wash your yardage using the same method you're planning to use when you wash your finished garment. So this is pretty self-explanatory, but say you wanted to wash your finished dress on cold, you'd wash your yardage on cold. If you're going to wash your finished Austin on warm, you would wash the fabric on warm. And the same thing goes for drying. The last thing you want is your garment shrinking after you finished it and you spent so much time getting your fit right. Once out of the dryer, you'll want to give your fabric a good press. Cutting is always easier on a nice flat fabric, so don't skimp on this step. Now, what I like to do is press. Now we need to lay out our fabric for cutting. The first thing you're going to want to do is find the cutting diagrams in your pattern booklet. So here you can see we have a few pages with diagrams. You're going to find the diagram that matches your fabric width and the view you're making. Now, due to the width of the skirts, some diagrams are going to be cut on the fold and some are going to be cut flat. So here we have a cut with fabric folded. Then here, like say if we're doing 45 inches for view B, cut with fabric flat. So here we have the 0 to 18 booklet. I'm making a size 12, 54 inches, and view B, all sizes. So I'll be cutting with my fabric folded. All right, so you'll now lay out your fabric according to your cutting diagram. As I mentioned earlier, mine is cut on the fold, or with the fabric folded. So I have my fabric laid out, the two self edges together. Now, if you are cutting with your fabric self edges together, so folded, you're just going to want to make sure that the fold is nice and straight. That means it's on the grain. So if your fabric isn't aligned properly, you can see we're kind of starting to get these little folds at the self edge, or sorry, at the folded edge. So we want, you can see here, here, here. We want to make sure our fabric is folded so this is nice and smooth. Okay, so now what we're going to do is start laying out our pattern pieces. And again, I'm using this layout. All right, now here we have piece 5. That is the front. And I've taken a swatch out here, so I just need to make sure that I'm not cutting into that. I want to have a whole piece. All right, now we're going to align our grain line with the self edge. So there we have 18 inches. Inches. All right, so now I'm going to weight my pattern down. Now at this point, you could cut around this. I find it difficult to cut around the pattern piece without destroying the edges of the pattern piece. So I like to trace off and then cut. As with most things in sewing though, it's completely up to you what you want to do. I'll be using my trusty number 2 pencil. And I just trace around. Now here we have a notch. So I'm just marking that. And it's not a big deal to use a pencil because when you cut, you're cutting off the line you traced. So you're not going to see it. Another notch here. Usually I trace my patterns off onto oak tag once I know that they fit, and I'm going to make it more than once. It's easier to trace around than the tissue. Another notch. All right, and then here at the bottom we have 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Mark that. Now we have a few interior marks we need to make. So the first is this match point here. I'm just going to place a pin through that. And then we have our pocket placement. So if you're putting pockets in, you're going to want to mark that. I'm marking my placement points with a pin. You can use whatever method you prefer, chalk, tailor's tack, up to you. Remove your pattern piece. I like to stick my pins all the way through at this point, that way they don't fall out. And then you can pin around the edge if you want, or you can just cut. When I get to my notches, I just snip in a tiny bit. It's within the seam allowance, so there will not be a snip in your final garment. Don't worry about that. And then I hold on to a few of my larger scraps so I can test my tension at the machine and serger. But the rest you can dispose of, save for small projects, scrap projects. I used to recycle my fabric scraps with H&M, but they seem to have stopped that project. So if anyone else knows how to recycle your fabric scraps, let us know in the comments, please, because it feels so awful to have these fabric scraps, no matter how small they are, and throw them out. It's hard to get in and cut this side while filming. There we go. Let's see if this works. Again, a little notch. If you're into rotaries, you could use a rotary and a ruler at this point. I don't have a mat large enough where I'm filming right now to do that. So now we're just going to set these pieces aside and continue cutting. Now piece 6 is the same, but with no markings in the center. So just repeat what we did for piece 5 for piece 6. Now these pieces are small enough to cut with a rotary cutter, so I'll show you what that looks like. Still doing my notching with scissors because last thing I want to do is slice that in. Make sure you have a sharp blade so you don't have to press too hard. Now here we have a notch, so 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. If you have a smaller rotary cutter, this is a great place to use one on the curves. I am out of blades for mine, so we're going large cutter here. Make sure that cut all the way through. It didn't cut right at the turn. And just one little piece didn't get cut. So now we're going to snip our notches. Okay, so that is it for this lesson. We're almost ready to start sewing. In our next lesson, we'll be cutting and applying our interfacing, and then after that, it's time to sew. I'll see you back here for this next lesson, and if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Make sure you're subscribed to our channel so you don't miss any of our video updates. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.